Hello viewers, this is Major General Neelendra Kumar for the playlist Insemilie in conversation with Sikyong, Penpa Tsering for my channel Lex Concilium Foundation. Now, one question that I'd like to ask you is particularly with regard to my background in the army. This is with regard to India's border with China in the north and northeast. It is in, I retired in 2008, so there is nothing that I can say which is not in public domain. We have the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, where we recruit, the induction is from Ladakh and that area. Of late, we've heard that Chinese are developing the villages on their side of the border, and also that apart from Indo-Tibet Border Police, there is what we called the Special Forces. There was 22. Now my question to you is that in your perception, firstly, whether there is a scope and need for induction of more youth, both boys and girls, into the military, particularly with regard to such units, and secondly, a need and feasibility for more Tibetan knowing persons as translators and interpreters, which could be useful on to the defense on I would call it India-Tibet border, though we are not used to calling India-Tibet border, we should get used to it. And thirdly, this concept of village defense forces, maybe that it would be a reactive thing, having regard to China. What do you personally think in this direction?
Now, the induction of Tibetans in the Special Frontier Force, now it's a public information. Earlier we were not supposed to talk about this, but sometimes it so happens that the information that we have to hide from, they already know everything, and we are trying to hide it from people.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yes. So that is also there. But anyway, now it is in the public domain, so we can speak about it. Initially, when we first came into exile, there was not much value for Tibetans from the Indian side. We had established relations with the CIA for covert operations inside Tibet, and US-India relations was also not at its best. That those days, US-Pakistan relation was much better. So we had to send our people through Bangladesh. If you have read Noodle Maker of Kalimpong by His Holiness Elder Brother, because he was instrumental in his elder brother also, Taksir Rinpoche, was also instrumental in that. So all this started after 62 war, when India realized
situation
that
changed.
Tibetans, situations changed, and then Tibetans could be used or recruited in this. So that has been going on. Initially it was with American cooperation. The para-jumping paratroopers were trained from Agra, then later in Saharanpur. All that we have participated in 65, 71.
Quite right.
Yeah, all that, and Siachen, Kargil, all that. Because Tibetans have the lung to be able to live on the high mountains. So for us, of course, we follow Buddhism. So it is not meant to be offensive. And India's position has always been defensive, not offensive, because India is not talking about annexation of other territories, rather defending one's own territory. So today the numbers are quite stable, but it's half of where it was at its peak. So induction issues are also being discussed with relevant authorities, but the Tibetan population, as I mentioned before, is also going down. Because earlier we were talking about roughly 80,000 to 100,000 Tibetans in India. Now it has come down to 72,000 Tibetans in India, around 10,000 in Nepal, a little more than 1,000 in Bhutan, and the rest have moved out to other countries. So those issues are also there. But I'm sure there will be initiatives to see how more induction could be there in the army. That is one thing. Then the second part of your question was
about the language.
The language, yes. Now, to understand, I think it's also important to empower the people in the border regions, like you have the Ladakh Scouts,
Yes.
or you have the Arunachal Scouts, but there need to be more people from the frontier side, because they know the terrain, they are used to that kind of
Yes.
altitude, and so those are also
The
there.
terrain is, they are familiar.
Yeah, they are familiar with the terrain, so those inductions could also be useful to complement others who are from the Himalayan region, other than Tibetans. So yes, that part.
The third part was about the village defense
The
force.
village Chinese have started Shaokangs, but I'm little skeptical about how much Tibetans or how many Tibetans they would move to the border to defend the border, because there has to be trust. Now, even we don't have enough information as to where those people are coming from, because Tibet is huge and it's very scarcely populated. Now, how many people are they going to move to these border villages called Shaokangs? How many Chinese are going to move in? How many military are going to move in, rather than the ordinary local Tibetans on the border? Because ideally it should be Tibetans on the other side of the border. And when you don't have any, because it's one of the most non-porous border in the world, when you don't have any connection with India on the other side of the border with regards to trade or anything, then how will you make a living in the border areas when you don't have any means of income? So it can be understood that, because China always talks about protecting the frontiers to protect the nation, so they are doing this, particularly on the Indian border, building all these Shaokangs, and India is responding with vibrant villages programs. So I'm little skeptical about Chinese moves as to whether they would really trust the Tibetans on the border or not.
Right, so perhaps wait and watch may be the prudent option.
Yes.
Thank you. This was very interesting and knowledgeable conversation with Sikyong. Be with us, this dialogue would continue.